I'm in my car. I don't like to film in my car, but I didn't have any time this week otherwise, and I really wanted to get this out to you guys. So my daughter is at soccer practice right now, and I'm sitting in the car, and I've already moved my car like 5 times because I was trying to find good lighting, and it wasn't happening. So if you see the bags under my eyes, it just, that's life. The light didn't help this time today. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Toni, and I'm a homeschooling mom to 4 kids, and I am going to be sharing with you guys today what worked and what didn't. What curriculum we really loved this year, maybe what we liked and what we didn't like. So if you guys want to find out how our school year went and what we thought of all the stuff that we used, then stay tuned. If you're new here, I'm Toni. I'm a homeschooling mom to 4 kids. We are finishing up 8th grade, 6th grade, 4th grade, and 1st grade. Those are the ages and grades of the curriculum that we are just finishing up this year, which means I'll have a 9th grader next year, which is bonkers. But that's okay. It's also exciting, scary, exciting, all that. And that my baby's in 1st grade, going into 2nd grade, kind of also like super sad, but exciting too, that we already know how to read and we are past all the baby stuff. How you get that bittersweet, super exciting, let's celebrate this, but also sadness, an end to something. But that's okay, because we've got an exciting beginning. That doesn't really have anything to do with curriculum, but that's just what I feel right now. Okay, let's talk about curriculum. I'm going to go by subject. I won't necessarily break everything up by grade just because some of my kids all use the same thing. Some don't, some do. So just bear with me here. So first thing we're going to talk about is Bible. We use 2 different Bible curriculums this year. Well, one is a curriculum and one is just like a resource, just an extra resource. The main Bible curriculum that we got this year was from Christian Light Education. And I think I did level 2 for my 1st grader and my 4th grader. And I did level 5 for my 6th grader and my 8th grader. So I had those 2 together and I had those 2 together. And as you can see with Christian Light Bible, it's not based on grade necessarily because it's Bible. So anybody can really study anything. The 1st grade level was super easy. 2nd grade level, okay, I'll talk about the 2nd grade level. It was really good. It was, I would say, almost a little bit too easy for my 4th grader, but it did work. I didn't get this curriculum in hopes of, her being so challenged necessarily. I just wanted her to learn and it be a kind of a different style than we've done before. I also wanted her brother to be able to be with her. So I think if it had been a higher level, it probably would have been too hard for him. So, and they are, 3 years apart when it comes to their grades. So it was the best I could do. She really liked it. It was something that if we hadn't done it together, she could have very easily read the lesson to herself, done the little activity page by herself and been done. For him, it was perfect. It was really good. What I did was I sat down with them. I read the lesson together. There's a Bible story. Sometimes I would use the teacher's book, but a lot of times I just used their book and I just read out of their book directly to them. And that way he could follow along and she could follow along and read the story with me. Great Bible story. They took an excerpt from the Bible directly from it and printed it in there and you just read it together. So sometimes I'd have her read with me, but usually I would read it out loud and then there's an activity page. And sometimes it was a coloring page. Sometimes it was a word search. Sometimes it was a cut and paste thing. It was really good. I really liked it. It was something that we did a couple days a week, sometimes 3 days a week, because it is only a half-year curriculum. So that's how we did it, and I did really like it. I thought it was a really cool change. We haven't done something like this before. For my 2 older ones, they really completely did it on their own. I taught the Bible lesson to the younger ones, and then they did their lesson on their own. I do wish that there was more of me, and I had time to sit and do their lesson with them, because I feel like we could have really gotten deep in the Bible lesson, but you do what you can. It was good and they didn't need me to be with them. They read the lesson together. They were perfect together for it. My 6th and my 8th grader, they read the lesson together out loud. I don't even know if they alternated or how they did that because they did it in the kitchen while we did our stuff in the schoolroom. And then there was always either a map. I think they had a map almost every time, which was cool, about a Bible time map, So that was neat for them to learn all the rivers and all the different cities and places, important things from Bible times. And then they had quizzes and tests. So that was something they would do on their own, but they kind of they had to answer questions every day they did the this Bible. And they did really well. When they got stuff wrong, they just graded each other's work. They would swap and grade each other's work from the day before, and then they just move on to the next lesson. And it was really good. They did really well. They learned a lot. I thought it was a really good challenge for them. So if you are looking for something deep and like really studying the Bible and studying the Bible stories, this was really great. I really loved it, and I thought it was very cool. So we did that every other day. It can become something like just another subject, and that was something I didn't want to do, and that's why I switched it up. And we did that some days, and then we did this other resource another day, 2 of the other days a week, just so they weren't doing this every day. And like sometimes they would be like, oh, do we have to do this one? Can we just do the devotional? Because it's work. You know, like my younger ones loved it, but my older two, it was harder. Like they had hard questions. They had to dig into the Bible and find it, and they had to do the maps and all that stuff. So it was challenging, but it was good. I really liked it. So the other resource that we did was the Adventures in Odyssey. They have devotional books. So we already have one that we'd used a couple years ago that goes through Matthew. And we had done some of that. So we did some of that this year. And then I found one at a thrift store for super cheap, for like $1 or something. And, or maybe it was probably cheaper than that. I don't remember. But anyway, it was really cheap. So, so we did that one this year. So on the off days, we would do that. We also did another devotional. I'll link all these below, so if you guys are interested, but we did do another devotional that I talked about, but we did a couple different devotionals this year. And I like that aspect of it, where that's more personal rather than like studying the Bible and like learning. It's more practical stuff. Does that make sense? So I loved the combination of the two. I think it's good to have both. I wouldn't want to do just devotionals, because then they're not digging deep and having to be challenged, but I wouldn't want to do just the other part, because then it can get a little bit like just like a subject, you know? So I don't want that either, to take the joy out of Bible time. So we loved both. They were all great. All 4 of my kids did Christian Light Education math, and that was a win this year. That was great. I love it. It is such a good math curriculum. I really, really love it. So it's solid. It is, it has these lessons that everything is explained to the child. My 3 older ones do not need help, really, barely at all. Sometimes my 4th grader is one that just her personality, she likes stuff to be explained. Like she enjoys mom helping with stuff. So a lot of times she would say, Mom, can you come teach the lesson to me? I'm basically just I am completely just reading what is in her book. And she just understands better when I do it that way. Then she does her practice problems, and then she's on her own. My other 2, I would say 90% of the time, they just completely did their lesson themselves. Every once in a while, there would be something that maybe they'd done the day before that they need re-explained, that they didn't understand because they got stuff wrong. Or maybe there's a new concept that's a little like confusing when they read it right off the bat. So they ask me for help. But it's all in their book. Like I didn't even really use the teacher book except for grading. So I love Christian Light's math. It is so good. If you're not a math-minded mom, or if you are a math-minded mom, either way, it is such a good curriculum. So I really saw a lot of improvement in my 2 older girls, because I can't remember if it was in the end of last year or the beginning of this year, they were both struggling a little bit. They're both doing higher levels of math, and it was getting difficult. And I was a little worried, but we pushed through, and they hit this groove that it just worked. And they were getting it. They were getting better grades. When the first one got 100% on a quiz, I'm like, like I wanted to celebrate and go, I don't know, to the moon. We were so excited. Whether it's a kid that's really strong in math or a kid that, struggles, it just is so well explained. I love Christian Light Education's math. I love it. So, and my son, it was just really good. It was easy enough for him to follow and not be confused about anything, but he is doing great with all the math stuff you should be doing in 1st grade. So I loved all of it. Loved Christian Light math. Reading. Okay. So for reading, I had all 4 of my kids also in Christian Light Education's reading. You see a theme here? We did do a few subjects with Christian Light. I really love them. And I'm working with them this year. I am partnering with them, and I'm giving you my honest opinion. I really love their stuff. It's so good. So starting with my youngest, he's in 1st grade. he did the Learning to Read program, which I have done videos before talking about how amazing that is. I have been able to teach all 3 of my girls, now all 4 of my kids, how to read using Christian Light Education's Learning to Read program. And then before that, the reading lesson. The reading lesson was for kindergarten. And then we just it just went so smoothly into the Learning to Read program. And it was awesome. It was so good. So anyway, my son is reading. Yay! My girls, everybody reads. Everybody knows how to read. And I really do credit this program because it is just so straightforward, so easy to teach. Everything's in the teacher books that you need to teach. You don't have a ton of teaching. He really gets it. I don't have to spend a whole lot of time teaching a lot of the stuff that's in there because it is written for a classroom type of setting, but you don't have to do all that stuff. It makes sense. And so he is doing amazing. He is that is my favorite part of homeschooling, when that light bulb goes off. And I loved it this year when his light bulb went off and he really has been reading everything. And I love it. It's awesome. So Learning to Read, super awesome. Then we also had Christian Light Education reading for level 6 and level 8. So all my girls were each in their reading. So the reading obviously changes as they get older. So then you're more into reading comprehension. You're also into learning different, all kinds of parts of speech and different things. It's not just reading comprehension. So it's very thorough. I really love it as the mom. I think it's awesome. I think it gives them such a good, solid foundation for reading, but understanding all the whys behind how we read. I will say, to be honest, my kids don't love it because it's not a short lesson. They have to read something, and they do, for my 4th grader, she reads it one day and then the next day she reads it out loud, which takes time. And then there's a good, 3 or 4 pages of work to do after that with vocabulary words. They've got, all these different, like I said, parts of speech and different literary, whatever they are called, literary things. And then comprehension and all that stuff. It's just very thorough. My 2 older ones, obviously it gets harder. Sometimes they did struggle with the comprehension. All the stories are super Christian. They're super, some are straight from the Bible. Some are just stories with really good morals behind them. But, it's just really good. They're not necessarily the most exciting stories. They're just good quality. So that is another thing that my, girls weren't always oh, this was so fun, my favorite story. They'd be oh, so it just depends. But as the mom, I love it. And I'm so glad that they all had that foundation going up until now and this year. So I thought it was really great. The last thing we did with Christian Light Education was language for a couple of my kids. So for his language, it was really good. Really solid, and just these are quick lessons for him, which was really nice. It was only 2 pages, front and back. So those are really easy, where the other ones are longer. His Learning to Read was longer, 4 pages usually. We did Christian Light Education 4, language 4 for my 4th grader. And it was so good. It's really, really good and strong. Is it my daughter's favorite subject? No, it's not, because it's long, because it's 4 or 5 pages sometimes. But I feel like she's so strong in language and these language skills. It includes spelling, it includes creative writing. It's got a lot of review every single day. So it's good. It's really, really solid, but it's not her favorite thing. She doesn't hate it though. She does really well with it. She almost always gets pretty much everything right. For the most part, I loved it. I totally think that even if I had to do this all over again with all my kids with homeschooling, I would stick with Christian Light from kindergarten, at least up until 4th, 5th grade. I'm not sure when I would put the cutoff, and then maybe branch off to other stuff. But it's such a solid curriculum that I love it. My 2 older girls for language, they did Fix-It Grammar. The reason I didn't do Christian Light for them was because we had come away from Christian Light for a couple years. And then when I did the placement test, they just weren't placing where I wanted them to be. And I was like, I'm not going to make this too hard. And I just felt like they were not behind, but they weren't placing where I wanted them to be. And we had used Fix-It Grammar before. And so I decided to go back to that, and we loved it. Love Fix-It Grammar. So I really feel like for me, Christian Light, and then when they're at a certain age, Fix It Grammar is awesome because they already have that super solid foundation from Christian Light, and then you get to Fix It Grammar, and it's short lessons, which they love. It's something we do together. I teach them once a week, and it's nice that you can do it together. So I teach them the lesson on Monday, then they fix the sentence, and then we go over it together verbally. I say, okay, what are the nouns? What are the adverbs? Whatever. And then they call them out and they fix it if they got it wrong. And then they copy the sentence. And it's just really good and solid. Even though it's quick and short, like it maybe takes us 15, maybe 20 minutes. I don't know. Maybe. I don't even know if it would take us 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. I'm not sure. It's pretty quick. On the days that I teach, it's a little bit longer, but the other days, all the other days of the week, they just do their lesson. They go in there, they fix the sentence, but they're doing all kinds of things, punctuation, all the different parts of speech. They're indenting, they're labeling like prepositions, adverb clauses, all this stuff. And it's just really, really good, even though it is quick. I feel like it's enough for language. So it was really good for them this year. They both did great. They love to compete against each other. So if somebody got something wrong, they would start tally marking on their book to see who won. And then usually there was some sort of prize or competition. That was not me. That was them. They love to do that. They get it from me though. I'm very competitive, but I loved it. Love Fix It Grammar. So that was super awesome. Okay. Now we're going to talk about history. For my two older girls this year, we did Biblioplan history, which we've done the last few years. We were in Modern Times year 4. And so we've done 3 of their books. We didn't do the first one. I didn't find them until we were in our second year of this cycle. But we're in year 4, and I really, really like it. I mean, I love Biblioplan, but I really liked it this year. It was neat because it's more interesting sometimes when it's stuff that like is in your era, where like ancient times, I don't know. I struggle to really like find that exciting because it was so long ago. I don't know. That's me. I'm not a history buff at all, but this is really good. It's just something we open the book, we sit down on the couch and we read it together. And I love that there's interaction between us where I have the girls read. I've talked about this before in my Biblioplan stuff. I'll link one of the videos above in case you want to see how a lesson works. But there's all these little colored boxes that have different facts and different, things throughout the reading. So it's not just me reading the lesson. I'm reading the lesson, but it's broken up. So I have like my one girl read this one and then her read this one, and we alternate so everybody's paying attention and getting more out of it. There's tons of pictures, which really help just bring it alive. So it's really good. They have so many more things you could do with Biblioplan. I'm not the most amazing at follow through with stuff. I have great intentions, but I don't always follow through the best that I could. But what we did with this, one day a week, they did a map. They have all these different books and things that you can buy to go with it, different resources. So they have a map book that they do every single week. They do together on Wednesdays. So we read on Monday, then on Wednesday they would do the map book together and just label the map and stuff, and they would do that together. And then on Friday we finish our reading and they do cool history questions, and those were really good. It's kind of like a quiz, to see how much they really understand. It's an open book quiz. I don't have them do it with a closed book, but I don't care as long as they're getting it. So they do that together. They find the questions, and then I used to read the answers out to them when they're done, but sometimes because of time, we kind of got to the point where then they just check their answers and they make sure they get it. They fix it if they don't. So that's really all we did with history this year. There's so much more you can do. We've done things in the past, like the craft book. We did a timeline. There's tons of stuff. There's a ton. I have the family guide that goes along with it, which is awesome. For me, I did struggle to put those, like they have living books. That was the one thing I really wanted to add in, where like the history books, they have all kinds of books that, like say you're reading about, Benjamin Franklin that week or something. They'll have like a book that, or for each age group that might be about Benjamin Franklin or about that time period or something like that. And you're supposed to assign the reading and then they read it. And I would love to do that. It is hard for me when it's not all written out. Now this is written out in there, but I still have to like put it in my I have to put it in my planner, and I don't know, it's hard. Sometimes I just couldn't, I didn't get the book from the library early enough. That was a major issue. I'm just not the most amazing planner. I like to share my failures with you guys, and this was a failure. It's not, I mean, they still got enough of the history, but I would love to beef it up. But you know, if you're really good at piecing things together and planning it, they have all kinds of things in there. They have movies you can watch. They have like audio things, and they have writing. They have all this stuff in the family guide. I just sometimes felt like it was too much for me to like piece together. So I just did the textbook and the other 2 things that we did, and that was it. And I think it was fine. It was totally fine. But so that was a struggle of mine. I would love to use the family guide more, but in reality, at least this year, we've had some, you know, when you have other like things coming at you in life, you just have to get through what you have to get through. So I didn't use the family guide as much as I wanted, but I love it as a resource. And there have been times where I really utilized it. This year, I just didn't as much. But if you're I would recommend getting it because it has so many good extra things in there. So the other thing that we did that I'm going to put in the history category was for my other 2, which was actually, which was history and a lot of other stuff, but which was 5 in a row. So that I did for my 4th grader and my 1st grader. And I can't tell you how great of a decision that was to do that this year. I love that my 4th grader I always just had her with us with Biblioplan. It was my big three girls. We sat together. We did Biblioplan together. You can do it with that age. I feel like a lot of times it was over her head. Not necessarily. I just feel like it was a lot. History can be a lot of dates, a lot of things happen. And she was younger, and I don't know. I felt like she needed a break from that, and she just needed something fun. And I did 5 in a row with my big girls when they were little. So I decided to do that this year, and it was so great, so precious. I loved it. I'll do a video soon to show you guys what we did this year with 5 in a row and how we did it. But we always had these different activities. So you read 1 book a week, and then off of that book in the guide, there's history, there's social studies, there's geography, there's science lessons, there's math lessons, all this stuff to go along with the book that you read. Such awesome books. Just so precious. And we just sat together and read that book every single day of the week. And they just had these different activities. I printed off at Pinterest, and it is the best curriculum. So you have to do 5 in a row at least once. I'm going to tell you that. In your homeschool journey, if your kids are not like already big, if they're elementary, please do it once. It's not something I would do every single year because I feel like there's other stuff they do need. But I totally love that. That was probably my favorite thing that we did this year. And I just love it, treasure it. Awesome. It's wonderful. So I love 5 in a row. Okay, science. So science we did as a family, and I love that we did it as a family. I felt like this was my last year that my 8th grader could sit, and I don't know if it really is. I kept telling myself, this is the last year that she can do stuff with us. I don't know. I'm not sure what we're doing next year. Well, I'll let you know soon. But I really wanted to do 1 more year of us doing science together. So I had 2 different options this year, or I guess I had 2 different curriculums. One I bought, it wasn't something I would have picked on my own, but there was a co-op we were going to join, and this is what they were teaching there. So I went ahead and ordered it, and then I decided not to join the co-op. But I had the curriculum. I already paid for it. So it's master books, and there's this whole set. I'll put a picture up here so you guys know what I'm talking about. But it's this whole set of 4 different books. I was going to do 2 of them. So I was going to do 2 of those and for half the year, and then I was going to do 2 units of the Good and the Beautiful because I love the Good and the Beautiful science also. So I'll talk about master books first. We did that first in the fall. So the one that we chose first was geology because it just sounded really interesting. It sounded like, I don't know, something we would really like. So I actually only did this with my 2 big girls because it was a little bit, it was like a 7th to 12th or something. I didn't want it to be, it was too much for my 4th grader, I thought. So she just did some stuff with 5 in a row. So we did the geology. It is fairly short lessons, pretty easy to read. It wasn't that interesting. I don't know. I don't want to like judge the whole series by the 1 book that we did, but honestly, we found it kind of boring. It was a lot of facts, a lot of like, these facts and things about like how the Earth's crust, I don't know, whatever, all this stuff about geology. I just thought it would be more interesting, and it wasn't as interesting as I thought. They have papers that go along with it, which was really nice. They had to answer those questions. Still, they didn't love that part. So I would say we didn't love it. It really wasn't fun. And so I decided to only do that geology. And I decided not to do another one of those. I'm probably going to sell those because I just didn't love them. Okay, so then when we were done with that, I decided we did the Good and the Beautiful's meteorology. I had actually gotten that last year and we never got around to it. And that was one that my oldest had picked out. She had wanted to do it, so I told her we'd do it. Love it. It is awesome. We are doing it this semester and I love it. We usually only do science once a week and we just do one nice long lesson of science and do all the experiments together. I love that there's an experiment every single lesson. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 3. I do make it a priority to do those because there have been times in the past where I'm like, oh, we don't have time to do that. And the kids love it. So we have to do the experiments. Sometimes they didn't work. Usually they did, but sometimes with science, it doesn't work out. But they have learned so much about meteorology. It has been so good, all the way from my first grader all the way up to my 8th grader. And I assigned her they have extensions, like assignments for the older kids, if you want to beef it up for them. So there've been a couple times where I've had her do like a report on something or her to study something and then present it to us. And it's been great. It has been so fun. I love all the pictures in there and the little books, and we love doing science together. I'm not a super science-minded mom, but this was good. I love the Good and the Beautiful science units. I think they're biblically sound. I've not run into any problems with them, and it's just really, really good and fun. And I feel like my husband's one that would be like, school doesn't have to be fun. I disagree. School needs to be fun. Math might not be fun. Sometimes stuff might not be fun, but if you can put fun in school, it needs to be fun. That's what I say. So I loved it. Okay, writing is the next thing. We bought a writing curriculum this year, and this was a first. I'm not sure we've ever bought, well, we did try the IEW structure and style years ago. But other than that, I usually just do writing with them. I was a teacher before, so it's not that hard to teach writing, in my opinion. Or sometimes we've had creative writing mixed in. None of my kids have ever really struggled with writing, but this was like a real writing curriculum. So we used Write Shop, and it's something that all the reviews I heard of it were good, but it's not a super talked about curriculum. So I wasn't sure what I was getting into. We really liked it. So I'm like 50-50. So here, I'll explain. They have lots of different activities that teach you how to really beef up your writing and really make sure that you are using all these, I can't think of what they call them, but dress ups. I think that's an IEW term, but making sure you're giving really good description of your words. They have all these word lists in there. So it's really, really great. And I feel like they have had really good paragraphs. They've had really good stories come out of this, and they've really had to think. And it's neat because my 2 big girls have done it together. So I can teach them while they sit together, then they do their thing on their own. So the hard part is, part of it's me. You know that song? Me, I'm the problem, it's me. Okay, sometimes it's me, okay? Because stuff that is complicated, sometimes I get overwhelmed and I don't do it. It's not the clearest curriculum. So I'm going to put that out there, that it is confusing because there's a teacher's guide and there's a student workbook, and they don't overlap as much as I wish they had. The teacher's guide will have the stuff the teacher's supposed to do, and then it might say, do this, have the student do this, but it's not in the teacher's guide. That's in the student guide. And then sometimes the student guide will have something to do and it's not in the teacher's guide. I wish the teacher's guide had everything that you need to do. And I wish it was laid out a little less confusing. It was a long learning curve, but I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn how to do this so I can explain it to all you guys, and then you can see how great it is. And I really do think that if I stuck with it, now that we kind of have the swing of things and we really understand what we're supposed to do, I really feel like it's great. It really is great. So it just was there's some things in the way it's written that I wish it was written a little bit less complicated. But the more you practice with it, the more it makes sense. But there are some things like I don't know, there's some things that we forget to do because it's not really in the lesson exactly. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's not the most clear. But if you can like kind of study it and really get yourself prepared and understand how to do it, like this is what I would recommend. Get it in the summer, look over it in the summer, which was my plan. And then I don't know what happened. Who knows? But my plan was to like really study. Oh, that's what it was. My mom got sick and I had to go home and stay with her. And I don't know. I think I just didn't get around to like really studying it the way I should. So it's kind of teacher error, mom error. But if you really take the time to understand like what you're supposed to do, and you really need to map it out in your planner, because I did it fine when I had it all written out in my planner and I knew this day I had to do this and this day I had to do this. I did fine. Times where I tried to wing it, which is me, because I get tired of writing stuff in my planner. That's when I forget stuff. So I think that's the problem, where it's like, if you don't have it all written out and planned out that I have to do these 2 things on this day and this day and this day, otherwise you're going to forget to do stuff. So, overall, I think it's a great program. I think it has a wonderful potential, and I'm not even sure that I don't know. I haven't decided about really anything for next year. I'll let you guys know soon. But I really did like it. So I'd give it like 4 stars. Yeah, I think so. I think I'd give it 4 stars. So I think it has a lot of potential. But I do think my girls have written really well. We're not as far into the curriculum as I hope we'd be. Each lesson actually takes 2 weeks to do a lesson, which if you're like me and then sometimes you get behind or you forget to do writing, then it can take 3 weeks, and we're not where I want it to be. But it was really good. Okay, let's move on. One of my other favorite things that we did this year was geography. We used Window on the World and Hungry Planet. And this was just 2 random books that I got at a book sale, and I really wanted to use them. So I just pieced it together. What I did was I would find a country that I wanted to do. I would find it in the one book, and I'd make sure it was in the other book. And then that's what we would study that week. So on Tuesday, I think it was on Tuesday, we would do Hungry Planet. On Wednesday, we would do Window on the World. And then we tried to like cook something sometimes on Friday. We tried to like bring it all together. We also did a missionary study for a little while, if there was a missionary that went along with it. And it was so good. It was really, really good. We had these yellow cards on our yellow note cards on our bulletin board to pray for these different countries with their specific things that are in this Window on the World. That tells you what they need prayer for. And my girls prayed for them. We just had such a great prayerful focus, outward focus, instead of just focusing on us, really thinking about the world out there and how we can pray and just the needs out there, and forget about yourself. But it was so cool because the one book, The Window on the World, that's about the country, kind of an overview of the country, the population, their beliefs, religious beliefs and needs and things like that. And then the Hungry Planet was food, and it was all about their food. It showed their groceries for a week, and it was just so cool. It was so cool to feel like we kind of visited these countries, and then we had a passport. So every time we would do a country, they would fill out, I printed something out like the flag or something from the country, and they would put it in their little passport. And that was really cool to see all the places that we visited this year. So it was great. I would definitely encourage you to do a geography study with these books, because it was really, really great. There were some places that didn't overlap, that both books, maybe there was a place that we wanted to study in this book and it wasn't in this book, so we would just go over it in this book. And so, but there were plenty that we were able to do many weeks of studying a country, and then otherwise I just had to improvise, and it's not that hard to improvise when you have the internet. So that was really cool. I really liked it. Okay, the next thing that we have was music. And this was my first time, I think this is my first time ever purchasing like a music curriculum. It was very interesting. It was really cool. It's from Thistles and Biscuits, and it was called Living Harmonies. And it was a multicultural, like around the world music curriculum. So you would spend a week or a couple weeks learning about a certain kind of music, like flamenco was the first one that we learned. And you'd listen to stuff, and you'd learn about like what's the uniqueness of the music, learn about the different people that maybe are really famous for that music. It was neat. studying the geography and then having this mixed into, I really did like it. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I just pulled up my laptop. We did this on Mondays, and they really enjoyed it. I feel like we learned a lot, and it was really cool to just open our eyes to like different kinds of music. So it was really neat. And it was a whole, they each had their own, or my girls each had their own notebook. So they had to answer questions after we learned about it and things like that. And there were flashcards that went along with it where we learned different instruments. So it was really, really cool. My only downside was they're really long lessons. So it was hard because we do this in our morning time. And sometimes I felt like I wish the lessons were a little bit shorter. And I guess I could have cut them in half or in thirds or something, but because you're reading stuff and then you're clicking on a link, the neat thing was I just kept the teacher's guide in my laptop so that I could click on the links, and then it brings you to a YouTube video, and we'd watch the YouTube video. So when we did like jazz, you'd watch something on, this famous jazz singer that we'd listen to. And it was really cool, but the time added up, like where I read all this, then we click on this video, and then there'd be another thing to click on and there were all these links, which is awesome. But if you're trying to squeeze this into your morning time, sometimes it was like, oh, I want to watch, I don't want to miss any of these links. But sometimes the video would be like 5 minutes long or something, and then you're adding multiple links. So to me, I wish the lessons were a little bit shorter, or maybe I should have stretched it out. I think it could be good to stretch out as a 2-year curriculum so that you can make the lessons shorter. That was just my 2 cents. But you guys might get up at like 7 a.m. and then it's not a big deal. But for us, late bloomers, late starters of the day, it's difficult when you finally get started and then there's a lesson that's like taking forever. So other than that, we really liked it. There were just some times where maybe we'd start late on a Monday and I'm like, we don't even have time to do music. But overall, we really liked it. And I feel like it really exposed our kids to new things, and it was really great. And it was cheap. It was a pretty cheap curriculum. So I did like it. So I think that was good. Health is the next thing. So we use 2 different health curriculums. We use the biblical worldview of mental health for children, and we use Trim Healthy You. So I just alternated. We did health on Thursday. 1 week we do the one, and 1 week we do the other. So the biblical worldview of mental health for children, it's really cool. It's very unique. Never seen anything like this. It was really cool. It's very neat because, I don't know, like we know our feelings and stuff. Do we talk about it as much as we should? Probably not. And this was neat to have our kids really get a good idea of how to express how they're feeling and what these different feelings mean and things like that. But it's from a biblical perspective. So it's not like what it could be. So I really thought it was good. There were some parts of the curriculum that were young, that circle all the smiley faces or whatever. Stuff like that sometimes, where my oldest, my older girls probably thought that was a little, we just skipped those parts or something. So, but, I get that they're trying to make it span for lots of ages. So that's where you just pick what you want to use and what you don't. So I thought that was really good. I think it was a really cool, different curriculum. Trim Healthy You is a really cool curriculum. It is a healthy eating plan, Trim Healthy Mama. I think it's awesome. I also think if you're not following Trim Healthy Mama in your life as a lifestyle choice, it's harder to do. It's harder to teach or something. Like, it is so cool how it teaches the concept of like fueling your body and not combining like healthy fats with healthy carbs. You want to separate those. There's all this stuff behind it. And I love that. I have actually done Trim Healthy Mama for many, many years, off and on. The problem is, like, this year, I'm not following it. I actually was like, oh, we're going to do this curriculum, and then I'm going to go back on Trim Healthy Mama. I don't know. I have different reasons why it can be expensive. It's also was like so many dishes. Oh my word, so many dishes. So sometimes I was like, I'd rather just make a 1-pot meal or whatever. But sometimes I felt like there was a lot of work to it. I did lose a lot of weight when I was doing it, and I felt great. But it was a lot of work. Anyway, if you're not following that eating plan, it's kind of unusual to teach it to your kids. Like, my kids understand it because I did it before and they understand the concept behind it, but it didn't always like translate because I wasn't doing it. It's like, okay, we should only be eating this kind of bread, sourdough bread, homemade sourdough bread, or this other kind of bread. And then when we go eat lunch, we have, you know, potato bread. So it's like, if you're not actually following it, it doesn't make sense to teach it. Or if it's like, we're not, you know, this is how you make a dessert without sugar, but we're going to go get ice cream tonight. So like, be consistent or it's going to be confusing. So that's the only thing that I would say is if you're going to do this with your kids, try to follow Shrimp Healthy Mama yourself as a family, then it would make sense to like have this as a whole thing. But otherwise it was, you know, it can be kind of confusing. So, or just like, or like a double standard, or like a little conflicting, you know, but that's not the curriculum's fault. It's just, it's a very specific thing. So anyway, I thought it was really good though. Okay, so spelling is the last thing that we did. We used Evan Moore spelling. We had a couple books that we hadn't finished from last year. Love Evan Moore. Super straightforward, a workbook, just, it's spelling. Like, they do something different every single day, have a test on Friday. It's cheap. It's great. I really love Evan Moore. When they finished that, I knew that I wasn't sure if I wanted to get another Evan Moore book just because they just finished it. So I was like, why don't we try this new thing? So I found this game called Spell Checked, and it was really fun. So I would send the girls, my two big girls, into the living room in the morning, and they would do or sometime during the day, and they would do their spelling together. So it's kind of like a spelling bee type of thing. It's these little cards, but it's a game, and it was really fun. And I thought I had like come up with the coolest thing. So it is really fun, but it was very quick that they got through all the cards. Like, you know, the first month or so, they're like, now what do we do? Because they'd already kind of gone through everything. So that was the one thing I didn't think that, I think they could have kept doing it, but I don't know. It didn't make sense as a long-term thing, but it was fun and it'd be a cool addition. The neat thing is it does have words that go all the way from like the younger kid all the way to like challenging words for my oldest. So it would be a fun thing to do. Like, my kids love doing spelling bees. So to do a spelling bee with your family, I think it'd be a cool resource to have. But as a spelling curriculum, it's probably not really enough. But if you combine it with Evan Moore, I think it would be great. They did have fun with it. It just wasn't long enough. It didn't work long enough. It was like, okay, we've mastered those. The other spelling we did was my fourth grader. She did Christian Education's language, which has spelling in it. So that was her spelling. She had spelling every single day in the lesson. You either have a quiz or a test like throughout the workbook, and it's great. Just a straightforward spelling curriculum. I love that it's in the language. So that's the other thing about that language that, you know, I think I mentioned before, but it's like creative writing, it's language, it's spelling, you know, it's got like all the stuff in there. So that is why it takes longer. But anyway, that was good. That's what she did for her spelling. And I loved that that was like in there already and mixed in. So that's all we did this year, guys. All we did. No, that's everything that we did this year. So some stuff I loved, some stuff I liked, some stuff I didn't like, but that's everything that we did. If you have any questions about any specific curriculums that I shared about, I know this was super long, but I want to make sure I talked about everything that we used this year. Just leave me a comment in the comments below. I'd love to help you out. I do have some flip throughs, so check out my channel. Check out some of my playlists because I do have flip throughs of some of these curriculum if they're curious about something that we used. Or if you don't see a flip through on my channel, let me know because I'd be happy to flip through these for you. Soon we will have what we're using next year, but I got to figure that out first because I don't know. I have some ideas, but I don't know exactly yet. So hopefully I'll know in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you are subscribed to my channel so you don't miss out on that video and my upcoming videos. And I'm really excited. I'm ready to be done with this year, but we're getting there. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will see you guys next week. Bye.